Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Eric. Um, my name is Susan Ida Boucaud, and this is Beverly Schwartz. And we're going to be telling an adaptation of a Lucy Maud Montgomery story, published somewhere in the early 1900s, and it's entitled The Little Black Doll. Beverly will be doing the dialogue, and I'll be doing the narration. And after we are telling, we can post something in the link all about Lucy. Maud Montgomery, who herself was an orphan and experienced a great deal of loneliness in her childhood. So we'll start with the little black doll. Everybody in the Marshall household was excited about the upcoming concert at the Harbor Light Hotel. Was it not the great Madame Lorraine who would be singing? Oh, in the Marshall household, definitely Grandma Marshall would be going, Uncle Roderick, Aunt Isabella, and Chrissy. Chrissy, the child who was pretty and graceful and everything that little Joyce was not. Little Joyce and Denise would have liked to go. Little Joyce knew that her grandmother didn't take her anywhere because she was so homely and thin. And she had to take care of Denise, the servant girl who was dying in Grandma Marshall's kitchen chamber. She knew as she looked around the tea table that really there was nobody there that loved her. She knew that Denise loved her, yes, but Denise was dying. And she knew that the little black doll loved her, but the little black doll couldn't say that she loved her. And with that, she let out a sigh. And Uncle Roderick said,
What's the matter, little Joyce? I was just thinking of my little black doll. Ah, your black doll. If Madame Lorraine were to see it, she'd probably want it. She collects dolls from all over the world. If she was to see your doll, she would want it because it's so beautiful and would just fit beautifully into her collection of dolls. Her doll, the doll that you have, the little black doll, served to amuse a little girl 4,000 years ago in the court of the pharaohs.
and Chrissy said,
Your black doll is ugly. My wax doll with long blonde hair is so much prettier. My doll isn't ugly.
and with that, when little Joyce got up, she spilled some tea on the tablecloth. Aunt Isabella glared at her. And Grandma Marshall said,
Joyce, leave the table. You get more and more awkward every single day.
and with that, little Joyce went to the kitchen chamber where Denise was because Denise always provided comfort to little Joyce. But when she got there, she noticed that Denise was crying. Well, little Joyce completely forgot about what her trouble was. And taking her hand, she had the most beautiful hands, though nobody seemed to notice it. She stroked Denise's hot forehead. And Denise told her why she was crying. She was crying because she wanted, before she died, to hear all of her mother's old French songs. And she wanted Madame Lorraine to inform her, to sing to her all of her mother's old French songs. Well, little Joyce pointed out that it was impossible, absolutely impossible. But Denise was adamant. Well, little Joyce just looked out the window and she thought, and she thought, and she thought until she didn't have to think anymore. And she went up to her room and she got that little black doll and she held that little black doll and she went to sleep with that little black doll with tears in her eyes. The next morning, everybody was talking about the concert. Oh, such a fantastic concert it was. But by that afternoon, Denise had taken a turn for the worse. And the doctor was called. And when the doctor came out of the kitchen chamber, he thought what he saw was the little gypsy girl, but it was little Joyce. And little Joyce said,
Is Denise going to die? Yes. Soon? Very soon. in probably the next few days. Thank you.
And with that, little Joyce went up to her room and she did something with the little black doll. And if you looked at her, you would think that she was about to burst out crying at any moment, but she never did. And the more you looked at her, the more you wished she just would. She went down the stairs, made Denise as comfortable as she could be, and then walked out of the house, down the path, towards the Harbor Light Hotel. And there on the rock was this beautiful woman with a dark complexion and the warmest eyes. And little Joyce thought, I could go and speak to her. And so she did. And she said,
Excuse me, Madame, but I need to find Madame Lorraine at the hotel because I have to ask her a great favor. What's the best way of finding her at the hotel? Oh, what is your favor that you want to ask, Madame Lorraine? I want to ask her if she will sing for Denise. Denise is our French girl, and the doctor says she only has a few days to live. And in her heart, the only thing she wishes before she dies is to hear Madame Lorraine sing. Well, do you think Madame Lorraine will come? I don't know. I'm going to offer her my little black doll. And if she doesn't want that doll, there's nothing else I could do. Ah, well, what are you holding in your hand? Is that your doll in the box? Do you think I could see it? Oh, child, where in the world did you get this doll? My father got it in a grave in Egypt. It was buried with a mummy of a little girl 4,000 years ago. And she must have loved that doll very much because she had it buried next to her. But I doubt that she loved it as much as I love my little black doll. Well, do you think she will come and see what's happening to Denise and sing? Well, I hope for Denise's sake that she comes, because before she was sick, she was so good to me. And she would play with me. She would kiss me on the cheeks, and she would tell beautiful stories. And when someone you love is not so much and they love you, is going to die, there's nothing you would not do for them. And that's why I want Madame Lorraine to come to sing to little Joyce. Come, I am Madame Lorraine, and I will come and sing for you.
and off they went down the path towards the house, went into the house, the back entrance. Oh, Aunt Isabella would have been so upset to learn that the great Madame Lorraine was taken up to the back entrance. Then Madame Lorraine went into the kitchen chamber and she sang all of the stories, all of the songs of that Denise's mother used to sing to her when she was young. Oh. And little Joyce looked at Denise's face and saw this joy, absolute joy on her face. And she knew that if she could just hold on to that picture of Denise's face, that she would never, ever regret giving up her little black doll. Well, after Madame Lorraine had sung all of these songs, Denise thanked Madame Lorraine and mentioned that little Joyce sang to her often. Madame Lorraine asked little Joyce to sing, and so little Joyce did. Well, within moments, Madame Lorraine was just focused on little Joyce. Oh, her singing was just marvelous. And Madame Lorraine, when little Joyce had finished singing, said to her,
Child, you have such a wonderful voice. It's a fabulous voice. I've never heard a child of your age sing so well. You will be a great singer someday, but right now you need training. Where are your parents? I must talk to them. I have no parents. I belong to Grandma Marshall, and she's out riding. She's driving today. Then I shall wait for my Grandma Marshall to come back, and I will talk to her about getting you training.
And she did. Well, you can imagine the shock on Grandma Marshall's face when she enters the kitchen chamber, and there, with little Joyce and Denise, is Madame Lorraine. And then on top of it, Grandma Marshall was hearing all of these incredible praises about little Joyce. Then to add to that, Madame Lorraine offered Grandma Marshall to pay for little Joyce's singing lessons. Well, Grandma Marshall said,
Oh, thank you, Madame Lorraine, but I have all the advantages of giving my granddaughter all the necessary advantages to develop her gift.
and so it was settled. Little Joyce would be getting music lessons. And before Madame Lorraine left, she said,
Little gypsy, please come see me every day at the hotel. And next year I will also return and I will help with your training. Someday you will be a great singer, but today you are a loving, unselfish baby. And off she went.
and little Joyce said,
Oh, she was speechless with what was happening. So she just little Joyce it was like, oh, what a lifetime experience that would be for me.
and she
And
offered Madame Lorraine her doll.
oh, yes, she did. You're right. And she offered her her little doll, and she said, Madame Lorraine, you forgot your little black doll. No, 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 I will not take your little black doll of 4,000 years. You keep it. Every great storyteller, every great singer, everybody needs a mascot. Keep that little black doll as your mascot. And someday I will show you my collection of dolls, but there's not a gem among them.
And with that, Madame Lorraine left. And then Grandma Marshall said,
Come with me, Joyce, to my bedroom. Let's see if we can rearrange your hair. Your hair has become so long and thick. Yes, let's rearrange your braid. Come into my bedroom.
and little Joyce took her grandmother's hand, and she realized that finally, she was going to be loved. Thank you very much.
Thank you
And if
very
you'd
much.
like, Eric, I could post the information about the little black doll and Lucy Maud Montgomery in the chat. Would you like me to do that?
Sure, please do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So in that story, it seems the little black doll and singing were two elements of love.
Beverly?
Am I getting that right?
Yes. When even as children and teaching them, bringing music into the situation, or even retelling things and having them give in their opinions when they retell in a story, you can see their little lights lighting up in their heads and thinking about it. So yes, children love stories that end in a warmth of something happened good to somebody and they had good feelings about it.
Mm-hmm. Anybody, any thoughts, comments, questions, resonations?
I'm curious to hear, Beverly and Susan, that was lovely to hear about your choice of how to divide up the story and how to divide it in terms of narration and dialogue, or did you consider other things, and how did you work on it that way? And did you follow the story as written exactly in terms of the narration and dialogue, or did you, change and embellish as you adapted from a literary text to a spoken version?
Well, the whole story could take about 25, 30 minutes to do word for word. And we knew we only had 12 minutes. So our timer was always on. And what we did was we did get some people to listen to it in other storytelling groups. And they were like, oh, you're not going back and forth enough, and less narration. But we decided that this was such a long story. We picked out the most important parts of it and combined the narration. And then we decided Sue would do the narration part and I would be the person doing the talking. And again, with the talking, we didn't do it word for word, but we tried to condense everything so to make our time. And I think it's not a normal, let's say, tandem where they go back and forth and they're doing different parts. But we wanted to make it clear that there was only two parts and we could get that in 12 minutes. And then that's what we did. So
how we started is that we read the story over and over and over again. And then we had the story spine and the steps. And then we just looked at those areas of the story that were kind of tipping in slightly in a different direction. And so that's how we did it. And that took that was quite a process in itself. And we decided to do this in terms of Beverly doing the dialogue and then myself doing the narration. And we found that everything, by doing it that way, we still respected the story spine. So when you go into the link that's there and you briefly go over the whole story, you're going to see that we follow that kind of sequence of events that occurred.
And this took us 6 months.
In other words, we didn't take what was in the back to the front, or, like all of these other different ways of arranging stories. We decided to follow very closely to the story spine, to the actual. So.
And that was unusual, tandem. It's a new type of tandem, we shall say, on Zoom, that you could take a story and go back and forth. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kevin, then Vicky.
Thank you, sir. First of all, my regards to the storytellers, Ma'am Beverly and Susan. Actually, to be frank, when they were narrating and when they were saying the dialogues, I wasn't able to see them. I mean, they were talking, but except the sounds, what came into my mind was pictures, the actual happenings of the story. I mean, no matter how they narrated, the flow, I was able to, I was transported into the world of that little black doll. And I was seeing things from over their shoulder. That's how it was. Everything from the way they entered in the back door to how they entered the kitchen and how she sang. It's also vivid. And first of all, ma'am, I was enthralled in it. So I'm so this is my first experience with storytelling in a proper session, and just came here to learn from Sir Eric. He told to come here and see, and I was totally enthralled by the story narration. Very excited to learn.
That has deep meaning. I was going to say that has deep meaning for Bev and I, that you were able to enter the story that way. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a doubt. I have a doubt. May I? Ma'am, when Ma'am Beverly was narrating, when you were narrating, and especially when Ma'am Beverly had to do the dialogues, she was just one person, but she was delivering the dialogues of different people in different positions and different placements. That's and right. Every dialogue she delivered, it was not just a change in her voice, but there was a dynamic shift in the energy from the way she voiced the little Joyce to where she went to Madame Lorraine and to Dennis. It was completely being in different places coming
Mhm.
from different energies, from completely like, it was like each voice had a different life.
Yeah.
How did you manage to do that?
What we
How can
did
a single
there
person do
is,
that?
what we did there was character. We developed the characters by entering into the characters, right? And the way you do that is like if you take, Grandma Marshall, well, she's very stately, isn't she? Right. And so you get into that character, and Beverly practiced that over and over again. And so, but then you've got like little Uncle Rod, not little Uncle Roderick, but Uncle Roderick, right? Like he's trying to help out in his own way, but he's not going to do anything to ruffle things up, but he's going to give a little hint that, this black, that time. So each one has its own character, but you enter into that character and practice that character and walk with that character. And Beverly did a lot of that in order to get there. Beverly, would you like to speak to more about that? Because
Yes,
we spent quite a
I
long
was
time.
I was an elementary teacher in 3rd grade, and my kids would just read flat, and I would say, okay, we're starting over again. You only can read with expression. So every reading group would say, expression. Yeah, we know, expression. And I made them try to get into the character of the person that they were reading about. So, and then I made them write their own stories and stand in front of the class and read it. And I said, if it's not with expression, we're going to tell you to do it over again. So the kids would probably practice at home again to get into the characters of the story. So I've had a lot of experience with making kids do it, and because it's in me. If you can't show your expression while you're doing something like this, it's not very meaningful.
Yes, people talk about voice modulation of
Yeah.
louder, softer, high pitch, low pitch, faster, slower. But it's a lot more than that. It's as you say, it's getting into the character. It's acting.
Yeah, that's what it
And
is.
acting is a
Well-
very deep and rich process. Vicky,
would-
go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody wanted to reply to what I was saying?
Well, I was just going to say that I think it could be looked at that way as acting, but I think also embodiment of the story. You
Okay.
live and you breathe that story, and it just comes into you, and the characters are developed that way. It's like an embodiment. So when you're looking at the audience, right? Because you're telling to an audience, you're looking at the audience, they see exactly what Kevin was talking about, these various characters, but it's that embodiment of the story and living and working, not living and breathing that story. So I just wanted to share my view on that.
Thank you. Vicky.
I am delighted to see both of you again. You're wonderful storytellers. Thank you for being here this morning. I wanted to know if you've made an audio recording of it. I think it would be such a wonderful audio. And I'm even thinking of the old time radio where they had sound effects like a creaking door and things like that. So that just listening, with nothing else but listening, you're in the story, because that would be a perfect story for audio, for radio.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done that? Have you made an audio
No.
recording?
Yes, it's
You're
the
a grand
first
premiere.
recording.
Yeah, this is our premiere. We haven't done it before.
No.
You
Could we
should.
have a copy of the video?
So
Eric?
this is our first recording. This one is. But Vicky, thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Yes.
It would be a really great gift for radio or audio somehow, just because you can just tune everything out and listen.
Thank you.
I felt a balance in the story because one character was dying, but another character was learning how to sing. And, her career as a singer was developing. So those two things balanced each other to me.
If you know of any, I know there's a radio show in London, but they have a limit of about 5 minutes. But if any of you could share a radio show or, what Vicky just said would be highly appreciated. You can put it in the chat for us.
Yes, and people's email IDs. If you go to the webpage about tonight, if you click on people's names, you'll probably go to a website with their email ID. Okay, we're going to just talk for a very short more time, and then we're going to go on to the next storytelling. But Denise, please go ahead. Oh, you got to turn your mic on.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to comment on one of the things that was said a few minutes ago by Susan, which is about being embodied or embodying the story or vice versa. It seemed to me that ages ago, one of the things that was contested among storytellers was this idea of you're not supposed to memorize a story. You need to internalize it, as if there's a difference, because that's exactly what it is. And I understand what you're saying. When you tell that story and you go through it 1,000 different times in 1,000 different ways, with putting stresses on different words and envisioning who your characters are and becoming them as you're speaking them, that whole process is so important, especially with literary works. And when you start, you may have an entirely different idea of that story and what the messages are that are there. And yet, with each telling, it's uncovering new gold and finding it. So I just wanted to say, I agree with you 110% that the stories need to really be explored in every nook
Oh, yeah.
and cranny to get every last drop of goodness out of them. And then still you can find more when you go back to them. And it always depends on who you're telling to and why you're telling them that story. And there are so many different nuances. So I appreciate that very much. And the fact that you both worked together to do this, and what it was that you presented today. So thank you very much.
So, Susan has been my mentor, and she's brought me a long ways. I mean, we did 6 months of this, learning how to research it, make it spine, and then do it and decide, and who was going to do what. And we went to groups that would give us a little feedback, and then I said, let's do what we think is best, even though we took the feedback. Some people thought there should have been more back and forth of her voice being a character too, but we kind of decided that this was the road we wanted to take, and we did it. So I'm quite sure both of us are really appreciating all of your comments so much. Thank you so much for all your great advice.
Okay, thank you very much, Beverly and Susan Ida. And now we will stop the recording.